GCUC is a global co-working and conference community. We've had our fingers on the pulse of co-working since 2012, and we've connected thousands of operators, both in person and online. On the Juicy podcast, we talk with the people making it happen day in and day out. Let's get to it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Juicy podcast. I feel so lucky and blessed. My good friend, Laura Kay, I don't even really know her last name, but she runs Quest, is with us. How are you, Laura? And also, just real quick, everybody, Laura was supposed to be at Juicy. She had every plan to be at Juicy, but she went helisking and screwed up her knee and had to get surgery. That's why she was not there. So we're catching up post Juicy.
So now I feel so honored and blessed that I get you one-on-one post Juicy.
Well, how is your recovery?
It's coming along. I realize I have a lot of energy. So when I can't move and be physical, it translates to intensity. So I actually, and which is tricky. So it's actually everything for a reason. So this is my learning, I guess, in this, all things for a reason. And I'm saying, what is the reason that I had to slow down with this? So that's what I'm working on right now, is sort of balancing the calm and the quiet with the energy that I like to expend and not drive everybody crazy in the process. So it's
I'm so glad you're on the mend. Okay, so one of the things that when people ask me what's one of your keys to success, I always talk about my morning routine, because I get up earlier than I want to and I read some spiritual things. And this year I've been meditating every day since January 1st. I don't really know what it's doing, but I think it's calming me down a little and helping with some stress. And so I'm curious, what is your morning routine?
That's a great question. It's shifted since my knee injury. It's definitely shifted. So I'll tell you, typically when we're in Miami, the routine is get up, go for a really early bike ride, have a cup of coffee, and then go for a really early bike ride on the beach. It's super grounding, sun coming up. And it's just it's a physical exercise, but it's also a great time to reflect. And then I usually go to the gym after that, and then jump into my workday. So then by the time I jump into my workday, I feel like I've had a little vacation day. And then like I just showed you, we're up at the lake right now up in Connecticut. So it shifts a bit. There's not, it's a lake. So we usually go out on a paddleboard early morning, or I go water skiing. So I like to start my day off doing something physical. It's kind of like calms my mind a bit. It gives me an opportunity. Like I jump into work and I feel like I've done that for myself, which is important. So, and since then, I've been doing, like you said, I've been meditating every morning, and which is I feel like I meditate best when I'm moving. So, like I'll actually, have that kind of combined experience. So sitting still for me is hard, is a challenge. So that's been a new practice that I'm also, so kudos to you for doing it since January. I'm still a work in progress.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And I think it's one of those things where you're not sure what you're getting out of it, but I do crave it now. Now it's like I do my things and my body's like, okay, let's meditate. And then the cutest thing is my puppy knows the routine. So he always comes and like snuggles right up when it's time to meditate. And he sits there very still the whole time.
Yeah, our little Tinkerbell, because the Kathy is an extremely calm little 5-pound teacup schnauzer. And I believe it's because Kathy meditates so much, and she picks up on that energy, which is it works for dogs too, which is amazing.
Yeah, so crazy. Okay, well, completely shifting gears. How is business these days?
It's good. Business is good, thank goodness. I mean, it's funny. I was giving thought to this, knowing that we're going to speak today, and I think we all look at the world like pre-COVID, post-COVID, and it's because it had not only like such a big personal effect on so many people, but especially in terms of our business, I think it really, it brought in so many more variables to how we have to, think of our future and also try to predict, and figure out paths forward. And, I do think, there's all this discussion about flight to quality, post-COVID. I really think it's more flight to flexibility. I do think flexibility has become so much more important for individuals, for large companies. But I think in terms of how they get there is still unclear. And I think as operators, I remember back, 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, where your progression as a operator was much more linear, versus kind of layered. So you could look at, different trends such as like labor statistics and how many people are going to get hired. And then there was this direct correlation to how many people were being hired, which translated to a workspace, which, occupied a certain amount of square footage. And then, people were able to predict leasing, in terms of demand. Now it's like, there's so many different variables that go into it because not everybody's working from an office. They're working from offices differently. They're coming in only part-time. They're only coming in on certain days. companies of all sizes are trying to figure out what works best for their company, what works best for their workers. So, oftentimes I'm finding like, the feedback that I hear often from our managers is that, a lot of our clients are still figuring it out as well, and it's shifting and changing. So, decisions are taking longer to be made, and, people make decisions and they realize, okay, that's not really what it's, that's not working. That's not actually as we expected it to work. And then they're shifting and changing. So it's, I think in terms of predictability, it's more challenging. But I'm like an optimist and an entrepreneur. And so like, I always look at every challenge as, okay, what's the opportunity in that? Which is great because I've been doing this for 35 years and it'd be really boring if it stayed, the same way. So, but it definitely, I think it is, it used to be, in terms of a leader of an income, you have to be in touch with what's happening in the micro trends. Now I think it's like imperative, and I feel like macro trends are less important than micro trends in terms of markets and what's happening and how things are shifting. So it's been very interesting, for me, because like I said, I feel like it's become more nuanced and more exciting at the same time, but also more challenging at times too.
Yeah. Okay. So taking AI out of it, I know which is hard for you. We've got a whole section set aside to talk about AI with you. Taking AI out of it, what other trends are you watching right now?
Oh, that is a great question. I think it's more important than ever and this isn't necessarily, well, it is a trend in that I think that the experience that you deliver as an operator has to be very clear and specific, right? I think if you try to be everything to everybody, and I think that you're not going to be as successful as if you're really clear about what you can do, what you do really well, and deliver that experience really, really well. Because I feel like there's, with all these amazing shifts and changes and paradigm shifts in terms of how people are working and the fact that flexibility has become so important, I think that there's a lot of attention to it. It used to be back in the day, there are very few options, right? In terms of what, people wanted some flexibility or they wanted some services and they wanted some community in their workspace. Now it's really where everything is moving. It's smart because it's smart and it's not, it's not like all of a sudden, workers are going to wake up and say, I don't want to be flexible anymore. I want to go back to it's like, releasing the internet. It's like, there's no going back from that. So, but because of that, I think that there's so many options for people and there's an awareness, I remember, Liz, having conversations like this where I had explained to people what I did and why it's important and what is a flexible workspace? What is co-working? Now it's, it's standard. So it's, it's like, back in the hotel industry, you didn't have to explain to people what a hotel, everybody knew what lodging is, right? We're kind of going through the same shift. Like it's a common, what we do is more reachable and it's more available. So just like, for example, in the hospitality industry, you have different brands and everyone's really clear about what they're going to receive based on the brand they choose. So I think that is, for us, really honing in on that and being really clear. It doesn't mean you don't shift and change and adapt, but I think that that's a trend. I think it's something that, we're constantly trying to improve upon and be really clear about it internally and externally.
Yeah, definitely know who you are and don't worry about what everybody else is doing. I see so many people that are so distracted by what everybody else is doing. Like, just be who you are and pour who you are into your business. And that's like often the key to success, I think, for a lot of brands. So, one of the things that like just kind of nobody was talking about that I thought was really big news that I think we should be amplifying in our industry is WeWork announced for the first time ever that they had positive EBITDA. And I think that's fantastic news for our industry, but it was just like, wah, wah, like it just was hardly covered. Now, I think part of that is because real estate has a PR engine and co-working does not. And I'm working to fix that. But I was curious about your thoughts about the WeWork news.
You may not like what I'm trying to say. It's a little provocative, but listen, I've been doing this for so long, and companies have, big companies have made mistakes and have had to file bankruptcy and have come out of it. Regis has done it more than once. And I guess I would be shocked that WeWork wouldn't file that, would go through a reorg and not come out profitable. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
So I guess, it would be shocking if they didn't come out of it and was profitable, right? So I think, so that, but I don't think that's necessarily, I think their situation isn't really indicative of the industry as a whole. I think that, there's many of us that have, from the beginning of time, started their companies and had solid business plans and, had experience and have been through the ups and the downs and have been able to operate their businesses successfully and profitably, since day one. I think that we were just, because they were such a disruptor for good or bad, early on, everyone thought that was the industry. WeWork was the industry. And that was, in some ways, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. In some ways, I think it was really good because it brought so much attention to the industry. Otherwise, it was bad because they brought so much attention to their 100%. Business.
Yeah. So, yeah, for sure. The other thing I thought was really an actually good indicator is you already recently put out a bunch of data. And in the cities that we're seeing a lot of growth were Chicago, DC, and LA. And those are three cities that were really, really hit by COVID. And I was like, oh, this is good. It means, granted, 5 years out, but I feel like everybody's back now. Except for maybe San Francisco.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I think that's a post-COVID, that's certainly a post-COVID thing. But at the same token, like after going through so many recessions and downturns in this industry, I do think that, business is cyclical. Nobody expects it to be, there's, you got to ride the highs and fight through the lows. And, it used to be, back when I was talking about back in the day when things were a little bit more predictable, you knew when rates were rising high, demand was high, space was scarce, right? You kind of knew at some point, like anything in the economy, things go up and they go down. I've seen time and time again, companies go on a tear growing and then kind of, go off the cliff, right? And, I used to say, when everything would get a little too frothy was when I would be like, okay, time to pull back, only because I had been through it so many different times with, working for other organizations and seeing what happens. So, so I guess, when we say, oh, they're coming back, it's like New York City. Like I, lived in New York City for 30 years. Like New York City's not going away, it wasn't ever not going to come. New York City, always comes back. I think all these cities come back. And I think that, there's the tricky part as as someone working in this business and trying to, again, predict what's going to happen is when, so like, to your point, if it takes 5 years and you jump in too soon and get aggressive about expansion, your timing is tricky, hence, people taking the more conservative route and mitigating the risk through like management agreements or JVs or aligning with landlords. So it shares the risk a bit. But I have no doubt that like, big cities are coming back and, and then there's also sort of the micro, that doesn't come with macro, but then on a micro level, like you take us in South Florida, there's been, small markets, markets just, 20 miles from other markets that are slower to recover and the others are taking off. So I think it's, it requires the ability to flow and not freak out, and just kind of flow through it.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears and dive into one of your favorite topics, also mine, which is the great disruptor of AI. So it's kind of funny, y'all. I found out that like one of the things that really got like that clicked with me was a master class I watched on AI. And then very funny, Laura watched the same master class and that also like kind of spurred her on. By the way, we also all thought the rest of master class was rubbish. So this is not an endorsement. Only watch the AI one.
Exactly.
Okay. So I know you went down a full-blown, very long rabbit hole into AI. So what is the most overhyped thing about AI that business leaders are getting wrong?
Wow, that is a really good question. I used
I used AI to make that question.
Yeah. That's I should use AI to answer it. No, so it's interesting because like if anyone on my team was listening to this, they would be laughing hysterically because I am the least technical, and I have to say this because I think this is important. I'm the least technical person in our entire company. Like it's not. I'm the slowest adapter. I am the one that has to ask like why are my headphones not syncing up, that kind of thing. So I want to say that because I think a lot of people think, oh, you have to be this very technical person to embrace it or to. I'm curious. I'm a super curious person and always asking a million questions. So number one, just like I've literally befriended ChatGPT, like in terms of asking questions, like I have it 24/7 to be able to answer any question I have, whatever's on my mind, which is kind of scary. So listen, I think that I think as a leader, you can't, this isn't something like, you outsource to someone else to say, go figure this out and how do we implement it? You can't, so for us, it's had to start with me, I had to embrace it. Right. So, and I did, I had time around the holidays and I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. What is the rave about, all this? And so I started playing with it myself and just, there was, besides the master class, that was it. The rest of it was kind of teaching myself and just being curious. And it started with that. And then I took my core team and I said, guys, like, let me show you what I've learned and did the same thing with them and said, no one is going to, we're not going to hire anybody to come in and just implement all this. There's people that are better at it than maybe we are, but we had to understand why it was important and how it could be used every single day. So we started with that and it was almost like, every day I was like, oh my gosh, guess what I just learned? Guess what I just learned? Guess what I just learned? So that was the first step, I think. And because otherwise I couldn't roll anything out unless my team was on board with this. So from there, they started seeing the possibility with it. And then the discussion started turning around. Okay, what is the role it's going to play with Quest? And so now let's say it's about 6 months in since I was like, oh my gosh, this is something. It hasn't been very much time.
So what did you guys implement or have you?
So, we are implementing. And the first thing that we did was we're using an AI bot in terms of the incoming sales calls. And I'll be honest, I don't think it's important when you roll it out that you go back and check and retest. And because I think I was a little naive initially, think, oh my God, this is the greatest thing, you put it in place and it improves everything, right? It allows, because one of the things that's important for us in the way we're approaching it is that how can we use AI to automate tasks that are kind of routine and mundane, but that could improve efficiencies so that my team can focus more on the relationship, the one-on-one relationship, the points of contact that go into establishing experience, right? So the idea was, how do you augment the two and actually, help the end users have a better experience because it's efficient, not efficient. So, and I give the example with my team is that, when you call in for any kind of service to any company and they ask it's an AI sales bot and it's our customer service bot where it asks you a million questions about why are you calling? What's your account number? What's your bra size? I mean, they ask you everything. They'll ask you every single bit of information, right? And they keep you on the phone. and like, hold on a moment, I'm going to transfer you. And then you get a person and they say, hi, how can I help you? And you're like, oh my God, I just shared all this information. That is not a good, for me, that's like not a good use of how you can use AI to improve an experience. So we're really, really mindful of that. And we're constantly testing and playing with it. So the first thing that we're doing right now is we're trying to have a more efficient way for handling, which is scary because it's your incoming sales calls, right? So and this is where I think it's sort of like trial and error and being really in tune to it, putting yourself through the experience to test it and say, oh my gosh, as a human, does this feel good? Is this taking friction out of the process, or is it adding more friction? So we've already had to go back to the drawing board a few times and keep changing it. Because unrealistically, I thought my AI new salesperson was going to be brilliant and perfect and be able to talk about quests like I do. And, clearly that wasn't the case. So it's like, all right, let's look, what is it good at and how can we do that? So, I think because I'm an impatient person and I'm like, okay, we're going to just flip the switch, right? And I'm realizing that this is a very long ongoing process that, and we can't be too fast to roll out each thing because you're going to end up, not getting the results you really wanted, which was to improve things.
GCUC is heading back to Manchester and we cannot wait. On Wednesday, 11th of June, we'll be at the Content Studio at Media City. And on Thursday, we'll have our exclusive tours of Manchester's best co-working spaces. Now, if you decide to come, you'll gain actionable strategies from industry pioneers, exclusive access to Manchester's most innovative workspaces, and connections that translate to real business opportunities. It's also a lot of fun. Come for the talks, stay for the people, leave with your next move. Tickets on sale now at uk.gc.co. See you there.
Well, and I think the hardest thing about AI is AI grows and learns and evolves every second of the day. So whatever you're doing today is outdated tomorrow. It's insane. And so it's just the constant need to stay up to date is overwhelming.
Absolutely. And I think, well, here's what's funny though, at the same time, one of the things that's exciting to me is that, it used to be that, these kind of tools, you have a huge company with major resources to build this stuff internally to try to use it. Right? Now it's like there's so many sort of widgets and options and things that anybody could use, at like no cost or very low cost. So, I think it's only prohibited by your own expectation of what it could do and your own curiosity, and also having to put the work in. You have to sort of you have to be not afraid to try it and not afraid to say, oh God, we tried it, didn't work like we wanted to, and we have to pull back and adjust. So it's in some ways it's been exciting, in some ways it's been frustrating, because it's like it's not so clear, and I think that it requires a lot of time, and everybody you put the time in initially, and I think it saves time, but I think initially there's more time that has to go into learning and figuring out where it can be applied in your company and what makes sense.
So do you allot a certain amount of time each day to studying AI?
That's a great question. I haven't, and we haven't formally said, okay, team, you are to put this much energy to it. I don't believe that that's just philosophically and for our culture, it's like, okay, I think it's, I'm more about try to encourage it in a positive way, bring to our, explain it in our corporate calls, in our meetings, we discuss it all the time.
Yeah.
So that in itself, it's like creating an environment where people are excited to learn about it and bring stuff to the table. And and also to I'm constantly asking questions like, okay, what if? Oh, we try this. And it creates that environment where people are willing to try. The tricky thing is that you also have to be willing to say, wow, we tried it and, it didn't work and it's okay, and don't, freak out about it, but then just keep moving forward and try, and continue to try. So, this is still all new. I don't have all the answers at all. I don't know if any of us do at this point. I'm grateful that we're the size company that to pivot and make, in some ways smaller companies in this case have an advantage, because it's not like steering a cargo ship.
Right.
We're piloting speedboats, because, we have smaller teams and we can shift and adjust and be more in tune with it. And we have access to it. So, I think this is I could appreciate why you're so, impassioned by it as well, because I do think it's just starting. And I think it's a huge game changer for a lot of companies. So
yeah,
I'm on board. I just, I'll be honest, like we are, we're also, I'll tell you this, like the way we look at it is, what are the things that we're doing every day that can be done better with this? That can be, that's really where you have to start. And it's a little more mysterious than that. How can we do it better?
Or what are the repeatable, mundane tasks that we're not going to get any better at? Like answering an email. You're not going to get better at that. You know how to do that. You've known how to do that for a long time. Right? So like, I think there's certain things, and I love the potential of it for removing a lot of the administrative, repeatable things so that our community teams can be more focused on human interaction.
Yeah. And by the way, I think some operators are going to approach it differently, and that goes back to, what is your brand? What's the experience? And what is the, what are your differentiators? And I think, I can see it, enabling, kind of tech-enabled space, right? Or AI-enabled space where there are no people. And maybe that's what, some operators may do, kind of like for lack of it, like the zip card where they swipe it and you come in and you use it. And, it's happening.
Switchyard is doing and having a lot of success with it. Those are pretty unmanned spaces.
Yeah. And that's, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's smart, because some people will say, I don't care about the, I'm very interactive and I love human interaction. So for me, it's hard for me to understand, because I think for Quest, that's a big part of what we provide is that people touch, right? That personal interaction. But some people, there's clients that come to our space and say, I don't care about these things. I really don't. And for people that don't care about it, they're able to offer me, an option that has less service, it has less people, and it works well. So I think we're going to find a lot of different interesting, cool applications in the next year, even before the end of the year, probably. So
yeah. I am trying to allot time every day to just studying it and searching for like, what's new? What don't I know? How can I learn more? And it's just, I'm fascinated. And I love things that are moving and changing so fast that they're hard to get a grasp of. Like that's entertaining for my brain.
I will tell you this. One of the things that we're implementing is new hires to have they don't have to be experts, because I don't think any of us are experts. And like, to your point, is like concepts, keep learning. But it has, we want team members that embrace it, because I think and so that's part of our interview process, is to make sure that they use it. We went so far even in some marketing candidates to ask them to do things as a pre-interview task. And anyone that didn't use AI would be like, are they out of their minds? This is going to take me weeks. But anybody that knew how to use AI would be able to bang it out in like minutes. So, that's one of the things that that's the start, right? Is to make sure that you've got the right team to be able to execute on it, and the right people and resources. The other thing I'm realizing too is that, with our current, there's only so much we're going to be able to do internally. And to your point, like you're constantly trying to learn. I'm trying to tap into people that are more advanced than we are in different areas of doing things, so that we can bring them in even on a project basis to help us roll things out. So, I'm experimenting with that as well right now.
Smart. I love that. Yeah. One of the things that what you said earlier made me think of my coach, who always says, are the right people in the bus, and are they in the right seats?
That's the story of my life.
And I love what you said.
My bus.
I love what you were saying earlier about flexibility. And I wanted to go back to that because, I don't think what changed was flexibility. I think, and I articulated this during co-working and my megatrends piece, what changed was choice. We had choice, and now we're demanding choice. And we want to have the ability to make the choices that are best suited for our family, for our work, for our day, for our productivity. And that's what changed. And, I don't like the term flexibility because it can be used for everything from a chiropractor to office space to, any kind of business that is flexible. So to me, it's not a great term for our industry because the SEO on co-working is so superior.
Yeah, it's funny. I look at it this way. It's, we are humans, with that AI, we are humans, and we are driven to do things based on feelings and emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not based on these like tangible labels, right? So I when you say that, I feel like, okay, it's all the same. And here's why, like, this is how I view it, is that, it's like, someone, head of real estate is going to say, we need an option that allows for flexibility, right? Because they can put a number to it. They can put a price to it. Like, if you've got a flexible arrangement, it's going to save you money in the long term. We all know that's undisputed. But, as a human, you don't, they're not drawn to, I love flexibility. No, but to your point, they love freedom. They want freedom, they want freedom, and they, like you said, they want choice. They want to know that they are in control of how they're working. Like those are the emotional things that go, so it could, your tangible thing that everyone, can wrap their business mind around might be flexibility. But as a human, as a person, we don't, even when we're explaining to prospects about Quest, what it's about, it's not like, it's flexible. It's like, here's what that means to you as a person.
Yeah.
Here's what this means to you as an individual. Here's how this is going to change your life. And, it's funny. And I go back to this, like when I started Quest, it's 15 years ago, this summer, actually, the tagline that I had for Quest was freedom to work the way you want. Okay. That was 15 years ago, Liz. That wasn't like a year ago. It's not a new thing. Freedom. And the truth is the freedom to work the way you want, that was just as much for me as it was for our clients. Like I needed freedom to work the way I wanted. I was a single mom raising a child and trying to start a business. So I needed to feel supported, with that freedom. I needed to feel like I wasn't the only one doing it. I was surrounded by other people. Like those are all the things. So, those are things I think are timeless, right?
Totally. And I think I think it's so important. Like years ago in co-working, people were kind of anti-business centers. And I was like, that's so short-sighted because we have so much to learn from the people who've gone before us. And I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your experience because you have been through business cycles. You have seen this before. And, it's just so important that we share this knowledge and help each other because I still know and believe that there's enough business for everybody. And if you look at like our friends Nick Bloom and Raj Chowdhury, they have the data that shows that, this whole forced, you have to come back to the office isn't happening. And that in fact, when you force people back to the office, they tend to leave because they don't have choice. And they need that freedom and they need that flexibility. And so I'm basically just saying, yes, you are correct.
Yeah, I will say this too, as far as the industry, and the evolution of it. I don't even I don't think that there was it was this way and now it's this way. I don't see it that way. Maybe because I've been in it for all this time, right? I wasn't, I wasn't one of the, the early people, and I stopped there. I was doing it all along, right? So I think that a lot of people that have been doing this for decades, what probably kept them doing it is exactly all the stuff that you kind of bring to light. It's about people, it's about community, it's about humanity, it's about, which I love. Like, you put a voice to all that, right? There wasn't a voice previously, but it didn't mean it didn't exist, right? Because I know for me, coming out of a hospitality background, that was like, I lived for that, like providing service, bringing people together. So, I was doing it without knowing I was doing it. It wasn't as it wasn't positioned as such, right? But that was still the level of service we're providing. Now it's so great because now there's such a heightened awareness that, oh, okay, yeah, community matters or sort of thing. And I know that oftentimes, listening to you speak and, as, this authority in this space is that how do you bring those two together? The business portion of it and the movement portion of it. For me, it kind of always kind of blended together, and it wasn't like it was this and now it's this. So, it's interesting. I think it's just evolved. I think it's continuing to evolve, right?
Yeah. And I think, that was the great thing about GC Boston is it felt different. And everybody you talked to said it felt different. And I think there was a shift more towards business and a little bit away from a movement in a really great way. And
you need both. I think you need both to be successful.
Totally. Yeah, because if it's just business and there's no movement, then what are we doing, right? We might as well be.
Yeah. Well, you use the word movement on a large scale. I would use the word passion or purpose, right?
Yeah.
So, for an individual company or an operator or what is being delivered every day, I think it's like, for us, it's real simple. You got to start with caring people that want to deliver that. It starts with that, right?
100%.
And then from there, and that, you get a bunch of people doing it, then it creates the movement, right? But as an operator, and as a business person who's been doing this a long time, like I know that's a necessity for my business to be successful. So that's why I said they kind of have to go hand in hand, but you have to consider both in all the decisions you make, right? It's on one or other.
And I think one of the things I've always loved about this industry is it attracts a certain kind of person. And that person is somebody who cares about people. You do not go into this business if you don't like people. If you don't like people, this is not for you. And that's okay. There are some people that don't like people. It's okay. But if you are like, I'm going to go open a co-working space, you need to like to be around people. And you need to like to build community, and you need to like to hold events, and you need to like to host, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think what's so great about this industry is it attracts so many people that are passionate about humanity and who get that if we can create more co-working, we can make a dent in the loneliness epidemic, which is why we're here. And so, yeah, I love that aspect of it. Thank you for bringing it full circle. Okay, enough business, enough of that. We're going to have some fun now.
Can I say one
Okay, sure. Yes, you can.
All right. Well, this is the main reason why when, listen, we operate in the real estate realm, right? We're real estate. But this is the main reason right there where owners and landlords that, the same people that love to look at assets, right? And run the business of real estate assets, it's two separate businesses, right? It is, and just like, for example, some do both of them well, but not everybody, so you nailed it right there. It's not if you look at this as just a real estate play, it is not that. And so many people get into it thinking it's that. And then they realize, oh my God, I'm sorry, but this is a lot of work.
Business.
Yeah, exactly. It's like running a restaurant without the food, basically.
Right. Yeah, crazy.
Anyway, all right, so let's talk about
Okay. So now fun, because it is fun, but I love how fun you are. And so I was like, she is the best person to do a speed round with. So we're going to close up with a speed round, okay? So got to be fast here, Laura.
I don't know. All right, what does that mean? Like the speed rounds, like dating.
I want one word answers. Okay.
Oh God, this is scary. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Favorite productivity hack?
AI.
Favorite go-to AI tool?
Ooh, ChatGPT. It's my therapist. It's everything.
Okay. Most exciting company you're watching?
Wow. Quest.
I love it. Okay. New York City or Miami?
Ooh, Miami now. This part of my life.
Miami or Park City?
Ooh, still, well, right, especially at the moment that I can't ski, definitely Miami.
Okay. Miami or anywhere in Europe?
Ooh, I love Paris. I love Paris.
Okay, Paris
but
is one.
I wouldn't want to live in Paris. I still prefer living in Miami.
Okay. Love it. Okay. Your best dance move.
My best dance move? I would like to think it's twerking, but everyone at Quest has informed me that I cannot twerk for my life.
Okay.
So, but I'm still, still trying.
Good for you. Good for you. Okay. This one's rough.
Oh God.
Favorite Quest location.
Oh my God. It's funny. I make fun of Nancy all the time because she's always telling me her favorite location. I'm like, they're like our children. We can't pick. We can't pick one. It's funny. I could go through every list and tell you what I love about all of them. I think, but in terms of a design, my favorite location is the last one we built because we designed it and I'm like, oh my God, this came out the best. And then I do another one. I'm like, oh my God, we learned and we made it even better.
The best. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Best part of your son's graduation.
Oh my goodness. The best part was him sitting in the audience, and we just got lucky that I was able to sit. It was, far away, but we're kind of lined up. And I was able to get a hold of him on the phone that he knew where I was sitting. And he and I were able to see each other, and I could cry thinking about it because it was like, it was so wonderful. Like I felt what he was feeling and vice versa. Like we had a connected moment with that. So that made it very special. Yeah.
I love that. And congratulations for getting a kid through college.
Yeah.
And okay, last question, very important as I'm looking into getting life insurance on you. Are you going to heliski again?
Funny you say that. For the first time, I was able to watch videos and photos from when I did it on last night with Jordan and Kathy on the screen. And I literally, I'm looking at these videos going up in the helicopter. And my stomach was getting butterflies because I don't like heights. That was the worst part of the heliskiing. It was so exciting, the helicopter height part. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to make me do it again. And I'm going to want to do it again. And so I'm sure once, it doesn't feel like that at the moment, but I think I will end up feeling that I want to do it again. Maybe
I love it.
Maybe a little less extreme if that exists. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I love your adventurous nature. You are a kick-ass, amazing businesswoman, and I am so lucky that I get to call you my friend. Thank you so much.
Ditto. And Liz, I can't get off this call without saying thank you, because in all the years of being in this industry, I never was, there never existed a platform for everybody to connect in such a deep, meaningful way, like you put together what you see. And I am so grateful that you exist and that you're such an advocate for the industry, and keep just doing what you do because it's so important. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really cool when you find out what you're meant to do in the world, and then you just focus on that. I'm like, I'm just gonna help everybody do better. And
you're very good at it. And you've managed to pull together the small operators, the large operators, and create a really good space for people wanting to share. And I continue to learn from that, and I continue to make important connections that have helped me. So anyway, so thank you.
I love it. We'll keep doing it. Open more centers. We need more. Love it. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Laura. And I will see you soon. I will see you in June.
Yes. I can't wait.
Okay.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning into the Juicy Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and follow us for more juicy content. You can stay connected with us on social media by following us at Juicy Global. We're looking forward to having you join us next time for more insightful discussions. Until then, keep exploring the co-working world with the Juicy Podcast. Ciao.